My name is Lolo Puzzlo, and this is Media Delta. Hello, and we're back. Media Delta is now back and slightly improved. I guess you can kind of consider this season 2, maybe. Although we are now past episode 100, and so we went on brief hiatus, and during that hiatus, I had worked on kind of how we are doing episodes. So this is going to kind of sort of be a test run to see whether or not this format works. But we will be trying something different. But I feel like this kind of works. So it's just a evolution of how we kind of done things already. So we are here again to talk about media. That part has not changed. And we're talking about something that technically is associated with something that I've covered in Retro Rank Rhapsody. A while ago, I took a look at a venture game for the Master System that was based on the TV series Sukeban Deka 2. And we were thinking of trying to look at Sukeban Deka 2, but we decided that instead of taking a look at Sukeban Deka 2, we decided to just start with Sukeban Deka 1, because that's where the story starts, and that's kind of where some of the things in Sukeban Deka 2 lie from. If you're not familiar with what Sukeban Deka is, it is a manga, anime, and live-action TV series that is about a Sukeban. And if you're not familiar with what a Sukeban is, basically it translates into delinquent girl. It was kind of a I can't think of the term, but it was a move. I don't know if movement's the right word, but
it was a kind of counterculture.
Yeah, as a counterculture, it was 70s, 80s counterculture. Basically, what happened is that there was the bancho culture in Japanese youth, which were kind of, think of like the American Greaser, very much into like bikes and just general like gang stuff. But the thing about the bancho is that it was specifically male. And the Sukeban kind of thing came out because, women were not involved. So, girls became Sukeban, which kind of signified by usually dyeing their hair, wearing longer than normal skirts as a protest of kind of the, I don't know, fetishization of the mini skirt. But it was basically
sexualization, sure.
Yeah, sexualization of like that, and basically kind of were involved in things like shoplifting and just beating the shit out of each other, which this show has in spades.
It's not dissimilar from Yankee culture, yeah.
Yeah. And Sukeban Deka is, delinquent girl cop. It is about a girl named Saki Asamaya, who is basically being blackmailed into becoming a cop. And her signature thing is that she has a metal yo-yo that also acts as the police, or like a police badge, and can do all sorts of not exactly realistic things. The original manga came out in 1975. Shinji Wada was the original mangaka. And what we are watching today is the 1984 adaptation done by Toei. That in total had 24 episodes. We'll be covering the first 6 episodes today. And we are going to, likely we are going to be taking a look at another 6 next episode. Or it might be 5, but we'll see then. Anyway, outside of that, I was not the only one to watch that. So please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Axe, and you spin me right round, baby, like a yo-yo, right round.
Hi, I'm Carnival, and once again, hi, Toy. You never change.
I'm Torpid-typist, and all I know how to do is walk the dog.
Yes. So we all watched the first 6 episodes, as I mentioned. We're going to do things a little bit differently this time. Rather than kind of going into a group discussion, I am actually going to break out everyone into their own discussion so that we can see what kind of things overlap in terms of what everyone saw, and just kind of give everyone a chance to kind of speak on what they thought about the about what we watched in their own kind of, in their own little space.
Imagine thinking.
Yes. So, let's go ahead and go into the discussions. I will start with giving my own take on this. So, thank you all for deafening without me having to say so. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and actually start out because normally I'd give my thoughts at the end, but I feel like, since I'm the host, I'll go ahead and give my discussions real quick as soon as I mute my notifications. Hopefully that didn't go through. Anyway, yes. So, I had a slight familiarity with Sukeban Deka. I've never actually watched any of the movies, the TV shows, or anything before that. Sukeban Deka is pretty notable. It is very influential in terms of if you've seen a character in some Japanese media use a yo-yo, it can almost guaranteed be attributed back to this. And I've just known this thing by notoriety. And I am not a huge fan of, I shouldn't say I'm not a huge fan of Toku. It's just not something I normally watch. So this was a very pleasant surprise. Much like when we watched Soul Brain previously, it is definitely kitschy. And I think it's kind of a neat little. It's not going to win any awards for cinematography or anything, but I feel like if you want to watch something that involves a little bit of action and some intrigue, you can do much worse than Sukeban Deka. It is a very goofy, but very fun little TV series. And yeah, if you kind of want to put Soul Brain at 9, I feel like that would be a good spot for it, although I would also be fine with an 8. Somewhere in the 8 to 9 range, I think would be good, although really even going 7 to 10, I think is my absolute range for my personal take on Sukeban Deka. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get Carnival, who is our kind of general Toku expert, and see what they have to say. So, Carnival, you have not seen Sukeban Deka before, correct?
No, yeah, not seen it all.
What kind of did you have any familiarity with this beforehand?
Other than not really. Other than knowing it existed, and that this was a Toei joint because this had the It had a budget for the equivalent of what it was for the time, even if it's Toku. There's no budget.
Yeah. So, um, yeah. Kind of curious to what your thoughts are on this because you're generally our Toku expert of the usual panelist. So I'm going to give you what are going to be our standard 3 questions that are going to be for these little interviews. So in general, what's your first impressions? Doesn't have to be super long, but what was your thoughts on these first 6 episodes?
This was a lot of fun. A little formulaic to a degree that's kind of a little too noticeable about the formula, but that's also kind of a thing that just comes from this is a Showa era show. So it's a bit more noticeable with them than compared to a Heisei or even some of the newer Reiwa era. But it's certainly something I would say if you're trying to break someone into Toku in general, this is certainly more accessible than some of the things I would say are better representatives from the Showa era.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting as well. Like, it's goofy, but it's very, I've kind of I've taken a look at, bits and pieces of Toku from that era, and it very much kind of seems to be on that same level. Although I feel like this is a little bit more, I don't know if down to earth's the right way, but it's very much more of a,
Oh, this is so much more grounded than some of the other stuff that's out there.
Yeah. So okay, so with that out of the way, what are up to 3 things that you thought were notable about what you saw for them?
As we previously mentioned, this is much more grounded. Yes, these stories are absurd as fuck, but this is all within the realm of mundane crime versus Soul Brain is weird, weird super tech or common rider monster showing up and doing things on a monster of the week, or an Ultraman alien show up and do a giant battle. This is all kind of really heinous crimes. Like, these crimes are kind of shockingly like detailed and in ways that are like, huh. At least two of these I think could actually work if someone tried it, which is certainly a change of pace for some how most Toku goes. Let's see, three things.
It doesn't have to be three exact things. It just could be if you had like just to keep it so that a short bullet point of what your top three things you want to bring up.
I'm just gonna tell anyone watching now. There's only like 2 songs, so don't expect a lot of variety.
It's actually funny. I saw someone uploaded the soundtrack for the show. It's available on YouTube. There was a lot more songs on it than I remember, but they were basically the same song. There's
you mean it's all basically arrangements of the same like leitmotif?
Yeah, it was all like Saki no whatever word. So it's like very much variations of like the same song.
Yeah, like this is extremely budget. Like, the essence of Toku is B-movie cheapness in general, but like this is especially, you can tell this is a budget show.
Yeah, okay. Anything else?
Nah, I think that covers like the general question.
All right. So not having to give really any explanation for this, what is your number range for where you'd rank it as from what you have seen so far?
9 or 8. I'd have to see some more, but I solidly put this in the same kind of area as Soul Brain.
You said 9 to 8?
Yeah, 9 to 8. Like, same as Soul Brain. I'd probably watch Soul Brain as on a rewatch more likely, but as I mentioned earlier, this is a more accessible show to get people into the genre.
Okay. Well, that is good to hear. That is good for your thoughts. Let's go ahead and see what X has to say about this, who has not seen this. So, X, you have not seen this at all, correct?
Yeah.
Do you have any familiarity with what Sukeban Deka was prior to this recording?
Not a clue. As with pretty much almost everything Toku that isn't Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
All right. So, and you're, as you just said, that you were only familiar pretty much with Power Rangers, and you were on Soul Brain as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Power Rangers, Big Bag Beetleborg, Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. I think those are the only ones that I'm even like remotely familiar with.
So pretty much the Saban stuff, and so not the pure Toei without the moderation.
No, even my interest in anime never really got as deep as some other people have got. I'm still I'd consider myself very surface level.
Okay. So in that case, you went into this with kind of a surface level of that kind of stuff. So what was your, just in a kind of a short general kind of thing, what was your general impression of what you saw?
So, full disclosure, I only watched 3 episodes, so that should kind of give an idea of the direction I went with it. I at first I thought the idea was interesting, sort of like a detective who goes in and then beats people up with a yo-yo made out of really hard metal. But the more I watched it, the more it's like it felt just like a telenovela, but somehow less interesting. Despite having those interesting ideas, it didn't feel like anything really came together. I didn't really care much for the stories themselves. It was just, okay, she goes into a school, there's some people either like stealing money or just kind of being scummy, and then that's it. Like, I was more interested in like Soul Brain because there was this variety of baddies, rogues gallery that they deal with. And going to the other ones, I know Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, you had all these different monsters. Same with all the other Saban stuff. So for this one just kind of fell flat for me. Like it just the actual use of the yo-yo seems to kind of fit in line with, I'm guessing, how Toku tend to be, where it's lead up, use the powers, mega fight, ending. And it seemed to fall into that formula. But the end result, the actual final battle, the use of the yo-yo, none of it actually felt or looked all that interesting. It was just she'd flick it, it would intimidate them, and then she'd accuse them of the thing, and they go, yes, I am the perpetrator of said thing, and then the episode ends. So for me, it was very boring.
So the thing I would say about that is that, yes, it is a little bit of a slow start. And the thing with this compared to other tokus is that this is much more grounded than a lot of other toku.
Very much.
You don't have the fantasy element of like your Metal Heroes, your Super Sentai, your Kamen Riders. So if you're going into that, like if you're going into something like this for the fantasy elements, you're not going to be like there is there are fantasy elements. There is one episode in this bunch that was about Saki had to go to this all-girls school where it turns out that there was a student that was using hypnosis in like a guise of black magic because she was jealous that other girl students were getting the attention of a teacher that she had a crush on. I'm trying to think about some of the other ones, but they were mostly that was probably the most fantastical element. There was like another one where it was a student that was putting bombs around the school. Was like that was another one. You don't get the monsters in this one, and at no point in Sukeban Deka, from what I have seen, you don't really get a lot of fantasy. There's things in Sukeban Deka too that go a little bit into mysticism, but you don't get monsters in Sukeban Deka. So it's very much more of a police procedural than it is it's a police procedural in the guise of a toku.
Like it's obviously very dramatic. It did have, that soap opera kind of writing and acting, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like they gave the main character a lot to work with in terms of like she didn't really investigate. It just sort of the answers seemed to kind of fall into her lap, and I'm totally fine with police procedurals. I mean, you and I are big fans of the Poirot series, for Christ's sake. But I feel like when you present a main character with a ridiculous yo-yo and sort of like, a yo-yo made out of this material that's supposed to make her like, she almost comes off like she's meant to be sort of like an assassin or like just this world-renowned, crime fighter. But they just go, oh yeah, and you're just gonna go to this college where all the parents are buying their kids positions at the college. The two don't feel like they meet well. Like superhero, like not even a superhero, but just like a hero with a really badass yo-yo just tells a person to give the police the correct ledger so that they're not, cooking the books. You see what I mean? Like it's just the two things don't really mesh well, in my opinion. At least in the execution of this show.
Yeah, I can definitely get that. So actually, I think this might actually tie in a little bit to the next kind of thing. So you kind of mentioned already, because I was thinking if you could think of like three things that you could kind of want to bring up about this media. It sounds like your first one is basically the mundanity of this kind of hurts it a little bit.
Yeah. Because like I said, the literal premise is this really, she's a model, the actual actress. She's a model, I believe.
Yes.
So she's already known outside of this product. So you've got this big name. You got to do something big with the big name. You can't just plop her in and go, okay, you're good to go. And then the premise itself is she plays sort of a pseudo detective, undercover detective with a badass yo-yo that does stuff. Well, why don't we do stuff more with the yo-yo? Have the yo-yo have bugging equipment, or like she could flick it and she could place like a bug anywhere in a room without anybody noticing. Like there's a lot of cool different things they could have done with it, and mostly it was just used as a tool of intimidation.
Yeah,
that would be my first thing.
I think that. I'm trying to remember the manga, because the manga, I feel like
it's
this
based off
as
a manga.
Yeah, so I wonder if this in its original manga form. I kind of took a little bit more of a look actually at the anime that would be more direct adaptation of the manga compared to the live action, because this is the live action TV is Toei, so they have kind of a way of doing things.
Oh yeah.
The anime slash manga definitely goes in a little bit more of a not quite brutal take, but it's a lot more, I'd almost say edgy, especially for a mid-70s manga. Like I know that there's a lot more of like murder and such involved.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a different beast because there's also like background stuff that's not really covered in the TV show. And they really don't even go much into. They explain why Saki's mother is in prison, but they don't go into any more of the dynamics because there's a lot more dynamic between Saki and her mother in the manga.
Yeah. And I have notes. So I mean, this is notable because I haven't written notes for Immediate Delta since I don't even remember the last time. It's been so many episodes. But you know, there's a lot to take in. And one of my notes, I do say, all in on a superhero with a yo-yo. So the concept of the character with the yo-yo, love it. I love the idea. Do something with this. Make me, you know, throw this in my face. Do something radical and crazy. And it's like, no, we're gonna do this, but we're gonna be very, you know, like, it's a weird, like, what if Columbo had a yo-yo? I guess.
Well, one thing I would say about that is the fact that I think the show really goes in on the yo-yo, but the thing about the yo-yo was the fact that that was more of a side thing about the character. The main thing about Sukeban Deka is the fact that she's a Sukeban, so she should be getting involved in, like, you know...
She's a delinquent, so she should be, you know, scrapping. But there's the second episode, she's told to not scrap. She's told to actually lose a fight.
Yeah.
Which goes against the whole idea of her character.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah. And as with any one of these kinds of things, the way that it held my attention or lack thereof kind of led me to, you know, just start to not pay attention, and then I'm not paying attention, so I'm not getting the plot. And that's kind of why I stopped at episode 3, because I realized that after 3 episodes, the show just didn't have the thing, the absolute, you know, the cohesion to really pull me in and keep me. And it's a shame because, like I said, I really like the idea on its head, but in the execution, it didn't capture me.
Okay. Well, in that case, did you have any other things that you want to bring up?
No, I think that sums up what I think.
All right. So without going like too much, I mean, you kind of explained what your thoughts on so far. What is your, as of now, what is your number range?
Since we've made this range the kind of boring range, I want to say, you know, 13.
You're thinking 13?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, why don't we go ahead and get Torpo's thoughts on what he thought about Sukeban Deka. So, Torpo, you had not seen anything about Sukeban Deka prior to this, correct?
I knew absolutely fuck all.
So none of like the I don't even know, like the kind of influence on this, because you're not super you're not really on the Toku side.
I am not in deep on Toku. I'm not Carnival.
That, but you're more into the anime side, so you might have seen something that had like influence. Like I know that a little bit of this is that it's something actually that I learned because I'm not familiar with the franchise, but like Kill la Kill.
Yeah, no, I mentioned it before, but yeah, no, the outfit of the main character of Kill la Kill is very much reminiscent of Saki's.
I think it's Ryoko. Or yeah, Saki in Sukeban Deka is her uniform is kind of meant as in, I believe it's Ryoko, character in Kill la Kill.
Yes.
That is a reference in like the ending of Sukeban Deka actually is like directly referenced in one of the endings, I believe, for Kill la Kill.
Maybe it's been a long time, buddy.
But yeah, so that would be where you would get anything, but still, you had not
So-
really done anything with this beforehand.
To be fair, a lot of the far-reaching stuff is more Sukeban Deka 2. But yeah.
Yeah, that's where it definitely seems to be. So, what are in kind of short? What are your general first impressions about Sukeban Deka?
It was very fun. It was darker than I expected, though every episode ends on a pretty happy note. But it was pretty fun. It was very formulaic, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I appreciate the relatively low, relatively low stakes, for something Toku adjacent, which is all of these where some of them were murder, but all these were pretty low on the totem pole as far as like villain stuff goes. Like, I'm hiding the fact that I'm embezzling money. Stuff like that. Or, man, I'm thirsty for this fucking teacher who refuses to like talk any of us down from this shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
So with just like no more than 3, what were your kind of, if you want to talk about like any sort of bullet point parts of what you saw of Sukeban Deka, what would they be? It doesn't have to be 3 like 3 exact, but just no more than 3.
So first off, I appreciate that throughout the show, a very big lesson is all cops are bastards. Like, at no point is the secret police shown as the good guy. They're mean and manipulative and use Saki to their own ends every time. To the point where they use her mom as blackmail and threatening with execution.
Yeah, that's, yes, very much clear.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, I like the stakes because all of these are, aside from the hypnotism one, that was a bit goofy, all of these are relatively, like, believable crimes. And I also appreciate that. And also, I thought the main actress did actually a really good job of playing Saki. She fit the role pretty well and was pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah, she did a pretty good job, and I thought I had her name right here, but I didn't. But yes, she did a pretty good job of portraying Saki. Any other points?
Well, I mean, those were 3.
Oh, those were the 3 points. Okay.
Yeah.
Just getting used to how other people were listing their things. So I guess those are your 3 points. Without really going into any more detail, what is your number range for where you would put this at?
I would probably say like 8 or 9. I would say it's comparable to Soul Brain, but if you want it simple, there you go.
All right. So I guess with that, that's all 3 of you talk to. So let's go ahead and get the group together. All right. So now that we've had our one-to-one interviews, we can kind of get together and kind of discuss this as a group. And I'll go ahead and say, it looks like we had a little bit of a split on how this was taken, because we'll get, actually, since our first bullet point that I have here for a group discussion, I think one of the things I found funny is that you as a group were split on one thing about whether or not it's actually a beneficial thing or a negative. And especially in the storytelling, because most tokus are kind of fantastic. You got stuff like your Kamen Riders, your Ultramans, your that. There's a sense of fantasticness to it. Where Sukeban Deka is rather, it's mundane. So the plots here tend to be more down-to-earth plots outside of like the hypnotism. I guess, did anyone have anything they wanted to say specifically about characters, plot themes, dialogue?
I want to say I appreciate the show just continually showing, nah, the cops suck. Just right from the get-go, you're like, no, she isn't doing this because Saki isn't doing this whole thing because she wants to help the cops. Nah, they literally have her mother in a noose if she doesn't go and help.
I mentioned that too, but yeah, no. Also, these are like secret police specifically. They're not just police. They are secret police, and there is no point where they are shown as the good guys.
And if anything, they seem to kind of fall into the bumbling idiot cop category more often than not.
I wouldn't call them bumbling idiot. It's more.
No, they know
it's-
well ahead of time what they're doing, but Saki is a tool to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, also I can understand not liking the stakes in this and how it's not super big and fantastical, but I feel like there's also a place for this low-key toku, I guess you could call it.
Like kind of more of a day in the life kind of one.
Sort of something more grounded, I guess you could call it.
I would call it grounded because Day in the Life Toku exists. That's Super Sentai shows where they forget about the main plot and just do Monster of the Week until the last 5 episodes, and then they realize, oh wait, we got stuff to catch up on.
But yeah, I would say more like low-key toku, like hero stuff, but not superhero stuff.
Like again, genuinely, the crime in the first episode of like using the government subsidy to hire students that are poor, and then using those said students to like pad your school's numbers is like
subsidize the rich kids too.
Yes, to subsidize the rich kids is like a hey, yeah, this has happened before. Maybe not in a way we can legally prove it, but this has happened. Which I did enjoy seeing that of like, oh wow, that's kind of exceptionally heinous.
I was just I guess because it's like it is interesting to kind of see like because yeah, most stuff in the Toku style tends to be, as you mentioned, more fantastic, and I think like a down to earth one can work in certain ways, although it is kind of weird how like it's how much like the one thing that that bugged me is the fact that they don't really use the Sukeban aspect of her like that much, because it's like, oh, she's
one
like
episode and it was neat, but yeah,
it's like, and also like the yo-yo is like, I feel like they kind of play it up as like this like massive tool, but it's more like, I feel the problem is the fact that they didn't want to have the yo-yo actually hit people because that would require budget.
Yes.
It kind of is like, oh hey, here's this yo-yo, and it just, hey, let me break shit because I can't actually hit you, because that would either like A, cause a problem with the actor, or 2, like they didn't want for some sort of like
violence thing about when this
yes
aired.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what time slot it was in, so I can't say for sure.
It was really funny seeing people cower in terror after a vase got broken.
Yeah. And like the way I thought about it is like it's used as a tool of intimidation, but the actual use of it's not really all that intimidating. The first thing that she'll do when she confronts the bad guy of the week is hold it up like a power morpher, and then it opens up, and inside it's a Sakura
Diamond.
So
yeah.
What that is it is the Sakura crest, which is the symbol that the Tokyo Metropolitan Police use as their symbol. So it's a police badge.
Yeah. And then it closes back up, and then she just sort of like menacingly, flicks it up and down a couple times, maybe breaks something on a table near them, and then they confess that they're the bad guy, and then, we've wrapped it up. But it could have been used in cool ways. One of the ways I suggested was maybe she needs to plant a bug in the room, and she just kind of flicks it on the ground, has it like crawl up and bounce up, and then plant the bug because it's like stuck to it, and then just pull it right back, and nobody's the wiser. Like little things like that they could have done, or trip somebody, or even if you want to get kind of silly, get it underneath the person's foot and have the person spin around a bit and then fall over dizzy. Like little things they could have done.
The thing is that they will occasionally actually do that. Like there was the case where there was a bomb that there was a pin that was stuck in it. So Saki takes the chain off the yo-yo and like uses it, flicks it like the yo-yo, and just yanks it out. And then
that doesn't involve another human being.
Yeah, or breaking the hypnosis thing. It's things that's like, oh, you could do some cool things with like, using it as a weapon like she does in the manga. but
Yeah, but that requires hitting people with a yo-yo, and like
you can't
that
show
seems-
that to kids.
Well, one of the other things they could have done is what you just said. Hypnotism. You could absolutely kit the yo-yo with maybe like a spiral and have her do a little hypnotism on somebody. Like there's so much you could do with the yo-yo, and it's sad because it feels so underused.
Yeah.
It is a gimmick.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's strictly a gimmick that doesn't work for translating to live action TV because, oh my god, actively trying to do stunts with a yo-yo is a nightmare because
Mm.
it's something that's like, it's why nunchucks are also are a cool thing to see in animation. Don't actually see them done a lot of martial arts movies because they're already a very difficult weapon to use.
Yeah, it's a
Yo-yos
good way
are
to wang
just-
yourself on the nuts.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
When I was doing martial arts training many years ago, nunchucks was one of the things we did, and that was absolutely one of the tougher forms that we did was the nunchuck because it's so easy to just crack yourself in the face with the damn things.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of a shame of the things that they kind of couldn't do in a live action TV show that I feel like I took a look a little bit at the anime today, or like one of the OVAs about this. And it's like the yo-yo, like there's a lot more violence in those because you can actually
So
do it.
would you also mind if I mentioned the trivia?
It's yes, it's
Because it's relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the original creator of Sukeban Deka was actually really not happy with this original series because it was too not dark enough, basically.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see a much more gritty take on this.
I feel like
The
Sukeban
OVAs.
the OVAs, the Sukeban Deka 2, I feel is more goes
Like,
into
isn't
more other places.
Yeah, didn't they do a couple? They did like 2 or 3 attempts at a live action adaptation of it.
So the live action series there's 3 series to it, which are just numbered 1, 2, and 3, that cover different plot points. And I believe that Sukeban Deka 1 is actually the only thing that the manga actually covered, although I could be
Yes.
wrong on that.
Sukeban Deka 1 covers the manga for the most part. 2 is its own original story, which surprising everyone because the guy who originally created Sukeban Deka had left the production team, but actually really enjoyed 2, and then everyone hated 3 because they went some directions that were just bad. And apparently the live action movie was actually also really well liked.
Yeah, no, 3 was so bad that it killed the franchise as a whole.
Yeah.
2 was massively popular though.
You will see references the thing that I remember seeing in a reference, weirdly enough, was Gaki no Tsukai. They do a thing where because in Sukeban Deka 2, the main character is introduced as she is a girl that her mother put her in an iron mask to protect her, and it's this very iconic looking mask that looks very goofy, but also is certainly a look.
Look, there's a reason they ditch it.
Yeah, like I think in the first episode, someone like hits it with a yo-yo and it splits.
Now, Gaki no Tsukai, that I know because
Yeah,
I got into the Batsu games.
Yes, it was one of the Batsu games where there was a schoolgirl that shows up and stuff happened. I can't remember.
Someone laughed. They got smacked on the ass really hard. You know?
Yeah. I'm trying to find a picture of the damn thing because it looks, out of context, it looks very goofy.
Even in context, it looks goofy.
It does, but also,
It was also apparently
oh, yeah.
very uncomfortable.
I'm looking at
Shocking.
it. Yes, I mean yes. To kind of give a description of it, it looks like someone's wearing a collar. Like it looks like if you hit a colander, it's like half a colander mixed with like a giant thimble.
Gonna wear
With
a
2
boiler on my
eyeballs.
head.
It's I don't know where they got the design for it. It's very goofy looking. I just know that in the match system game, it's a item that gives you extra defense. But other than that, yeah. So yeah, I feel like there's some potential that they could have changed some things about it. But yeah. I think that's one thing that over to aesthetic, so art, music, set design. The fact that this Otoku shined in the fact that there's some repetition going on in this series.
You mean the fact that sets are expensive, so here we go.
Yeah.
We got the same places that Toei's been recording for 50 years.
Yes. Very familiar looking office buildings, school settings that all the schools practically look the same. Very use of the same music every single episode.
It's really great every time it randomly cuts in and out.
Yes. The one thing I will say about the sound design in this show is great.
I fucking love the yo-yo noise. It's so good.
The yo-yo noise is really good.
It is so satisfying to hear every time.
Yeah. That I was watching something actually that was talking about Sukeban Deka, and the one thing they mentioned was like, yeah, that yo-yo sound is really good. It is really satisfying. But yeah, it's the same kind of thing that you would imagine Toei probably would have the same exact discussion about Soul Brain, although at a little bit different scale.
I think Soul Brain had more of a budget than this show did.
It did, but also you had the same. It's like, oh, hey, it's very similar sets. It's a Toei staple in part of the thing that's like, oh, what is the definition of a Toku show? Cheap.
And the Quarry. I didn't see the Quarry.
The Quarry hasn't shown up yet.
Not yet. We might get there.
The problem is that all the settings either are like in office buildings or schools, so they have not come up with an excuse to go to Quarry yet.
They could go on a field trip. Let's go to the Quarry.
You could. They just haven't yet.
You could get like real meta with it. Be like, hey, yes, we're going on a field trip to the famous Toei Quarry.
I think this probably, yeah, yes.
Actually, a very well-known quarry is the thing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say there's multiple of them, aren't there? Or is it just one?
It's mostly the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's just this one that they have a couple other ones they go to, but there's mainly this one that's like versatile. Like they have the same force they go to film all the time.
Yeah.
Or the warehouse.
Or the warehouse.
Yes. So yeah, I think that's good for the aesthetic. What came up, actually, the performance actually were pretty good. Saki's actress in particular did a pretty good job of playing her.
She actually fit the look really well, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, Yuki Saito did a really good job. And like she's the most compelling part of the show because she's just fucking in it. You know, every line she delivers with absolute just passion and drama, and it is engaging. I just wish the rest of the show lived up to that.
It's great every time she goes on her little speech about falling into decadence and how she's still not as terrible as them, because the delivery's fantastic every time.
Every time.
It is. There's something to say about how sometimes formulaic stuff is a little off-putting, but also sometimes when you have a really good speech that modifies itself depending upon what the situation is at hand. It's really good. Also, this is technically a side performance, although it's unintentional. The studio or the team that did the subtitling for this show was, I believe, the team is called Skeweds, like skewed with a capital S at the end. Did a very good thing with the subtitling is that whenever Saki introduced herself as Sukeban Deka, they added an additional little flourish to the subtitles, and I loved it every time it happened.
It's so fucking good.
See, I normally really hate when people do that, but that's because the people who I know mostly for doing that used to kind of do it too much. It's like, this is nice and tasteful.
Well, yeah, because they barely do any effects, but that is like the only real one they do.
It is a very tiny touch, but I thought it was kind of funny. Yeah, I don't think there was really anything else notable in terms of like the competency of the performances. Editing and like competency in terms of like editing, like craft. It's like these things are so down set to a formula.
There were some really bad obvious cuts though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, there
that's
were.
that's a genre thing though.
yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's Toei, so it's either part of the charm or very off-putting.
Like that's just Toei doesn't edit for shit if it's not like one of their actual movies that they put money into.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of covered that little bit of it. So now that we got that kind of discussion about the actual thing, so I got some trivia here, although we kind of technically covered one. One little weird note that actually they made a point of in one of the episodes is the fact that in the show, Saki mentions that she's left-handed because at some point there's like they go on a spiel about, oh, when I was at the other school, they broke my right hand, so I had to transfer over to being left-handed. That is not a thing from the manga. They had to make that change because the lead actress for Saki was left-handed. So they had to make that change. Also, that is, oddly enough, a thing they transfers into Sukeban Deka 2 because the actress that plays the main character there also is left-handed. So that's
I do
a weird...
appreciate that they made it a plot point, though, in one of the episodes.
They didn't have to because I don't think they mention that, but...
It's a little detail that does help sell the story a bit more.
Yeah. We already mentioned the fact that the author didn't like Series 1, but also the funny thing is about Sukeban Deka is the fact that originally that this was meant to be a high school thing, but eventually got transferred into...
So Sukeban Deka was originally meant to be a high school drama, but that's not what the editor thought they were getting. So they had to make some changes to it, and that's how we ended up with Sukeban Deka.
Yeah, so I thought that was a fun little thing here.
I think the editor thought they were getting a crime drama.
Yes, the editor thought they were getting like some hard-boiled crime, and whoops, that didn't make that clear. Time to make some changes.
Yeah, so I thought that was a fun little thing about the origins of Sukeban Deka. And I actually might explain some how things went in terms of how like the story goes. But yeah. So there's some trivia for you regarding Sukeban Deka 1. I think what we're gonna do here is, because I'm curious to see where the some of the further episodes are. So we are going to probably do a second part to this where we kind of explore a little bit more, see if it does change, because it does look like they were trying to make some changes to how the thing works, and seeing how, if any of the later things, they try and amp up the silliness, or if it's still kind of as mundane. So that'll be what... so we will be continuing our look at Sukeban Deka. And then eventually, at that point, we will go ahead and rank it. So, with that there, I think that is good enough to cover for this first episode of our look at Sukeban Deka. So, before we go, Axe, is there anything you want to plug?
Yes, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network and your local SPCA office, or place where they have shelters, animal shelter. Please adopt, don't shop.
All right, Carnival.
Your local mutual aid or bail fund.
Torpo.
Torvin.
Promo yourself!
No, you don't understand. My cat's making noises and they're hilarious.
Good
But
cats.
twitch.tv/torpidtypist, @torpidtypist on Twitter. And I would like to plug this hole in my budget from all the embezzlement.
All right. So yeah, as I mentioned, next time we'll be covering more of Sukeban Deka and giving our final word on it. So, with that, thank you all for listening. If you would like to see the list in which we have ranked every single thing we've done for Media Delta, you can go to r3.ldp.life in your browser. If you would like to watch the sister show that determines what could show up on Media Delta, that's Retro Rank Rhapsody, you can watch it live on Twitch at twitch.tv/lolotopuzzlo or on YouTube at youtube.ldp.life. If you would like to discuss this episode with others, please join our Discord server by going to discord.ldp.life in your browser, which should give you a link. Thank you again for listening.